Ladies and gents, welcome back to the channel. Today could be possibly one of the crowning achievements of this channel. InfinitelyGalactic has been around as a project for over 10 years, and the whole point of this channel has always been to showcase alternatives in technology and in open source software especially. Now, the beauty of open source software and what it has done for thousands, if not millions of people around the world is it's given them an opportunity to pursue a creative expression, to pursue all kinds of amazing things that you can do with a computer without being limited by finances, or being limited by access, or being limited by what kind of hardware you're running and how powerful it is. So you might be thinking of switching to Linux because you like the idea of everything on the computer being owned and being managed by you. You're not a product of advertising, you're not a product to the whims of a particular company. All your information is private. There's a lot of appeals. Now, Linux obviously is a king in the server space. It is gaining ground on the desktop, but the biggest problem that we always come across when anyone tries to switch to Linux is the programs that you run, the applications that you run. One of the goals of this channel is to try and help you with that switch. Now, what I'm going to show you today is over 25 apps that you need on your computer right now. And it doesn't matter if you run Windows, Mac, or Linux. The list of apps that I'm going to give you today represent some of the best that the open source software world can offer you. Now, for those of us who are already part of the open source world and we love our Linux and our open source apps, this will kind of be a tour through the Hall of Fame for a lot of the open source projects out there. So come along for the ride. I'm going to try and group these with the timestamps down below by what kind of category I'm talking about. These are the apps you need to install right now on your computer. Because once you have installed these apps, you will feel the gateway drug of open source software. And if you can switch your workflow over to these apps, chances are you're not too far away from installing Linux. All right, let's jump into it. So, where do we even begin? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2021, and so we can't go any further without mentioning the web browser. The web browser of choice needs to be Firefox. And while there are plenty of other alternatives out there that are both free and open source, I think Firefox offers the most features, cross-platform syncing, the richest add-on ecosystem, and upholding privacy is one of their main goals. So Firefox, go and get it no matter which platform you're on. Let's talk about email. Emailing is something that all of us still have to do, and a lot of us are still doing it through a web browser because we use Gmail or Outlook or something like that. Well, can I encourage you, if you want desktop level features akin to what you can find on Outlook, for example, then you need to go and check out MailSpring. Now, MailSpring, a lot of people in the open source bubble that I live in were under the impression that MailSpring was a dead project. But I can confirm that they actually had a release only about 2 weeks ago from the time of the recording of this video. The open source development of MailSpring marches on. Now, I will preface it by saying this, that true open source purists will know that the MailSpring email engine itself is not entirely free and open source. In that, the mail, in order to activate some of the features that this email program offers, goes through a particular mail server. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, don't you worry, I have an alternative for you. But what this allows is some of the best email features that I have seen on desktop email, period. Mac, Linux, Windows. Go and check out MailSpring and download it. Thunderbird is your backup, in that Thunderbird has been around for a long, long time, and it will hopefully be around for a long, long time to come. And it has pretty much every feature that you can imagine under the sun, whether it's encryption, whether it is calendar integration, all of those things can be done in Thunderbird. The reason that it's not my prime pick is that it's not as modern and it doesn't look as nice as something like MailSpring. So for me personally, I do prefer to use MailSpring, but at the moment I am on a Thunderbird spree. I love what the Thunderbird project is, what they represent, and they're loosely associated with Firefox. So they share a lot of the code base there. Again, Mac, Windows, and Linux, go get it. Let's talk about gaming. Gaming on the open source side of things is kind of similar to what it is on Windows. Mac, you guys don't get many options anyway. So if you are looking at gaming on Linux eventually, Steam library is a great place to start. Steam is not open source, obviously. And there are plenty of open source games that you can go get, but an open source tool that can help you with your games is Lutris. Lutris is only relevant once you have made the switch to Linux, but it can help iron out a lot of the kinks of getting some of the most popular games in the world installed and running under Linux. So from that, I'm just going to recommend Steam and Lutris, and that's about all I can do here. There are a lot of excellent games. My personal pick right now is a real-time strategy game called 0AD. It's like Age of Empires with a few more features. So definitely go check that out. I'll see if I can pull it up here really quick. But 0AD is a lot of fun, and it just, I don't know, it's better than Age of Empires in almost every way. And it's just ticking away under slow development as we go here. But it's a beautiful example of an open source game. Okay, we need to get back to the list. So let's talk about communications. Signal. If you're not using Signal at this point, you need to ditch WhatsApp, you need to ditch Facebook Messenger, you need to ditch iMessage or whatever it is that you're using. You need to go and get Signal. Go get it on everything that you have. Your phone, Mac, Windows, Linux, your iPad, for crying out loud, I don't know. And if you're not into Signal, or if you're looking for online communities that you can hang out with and chat with, then Telegram usually has a community for you. And both of these apps share the same end-to-end, or a very similar end-to-end encryption engine, which is, once again, open source. Let's talk about media players. In the past, I would have recommended VLC Media Player, the little road cone. It's been around for a long time. But what I've found is that although that app is great and it's very versatile, it has a lot of features. When it comes to just playing media, I've found that MPV is quicker and more efficient and smoother than what VLC offers 9 times out of 10. Once again, Windows, Mac, and Linux, go get MPV, and you'll have a simple, really effective, and very performant media player for all of your media needs. If you want to do a bit of transcoding, you need to check out Handbrake. Handbrake is a wonderful tool that can transcode pretty much any media into any target format you so desire, with a lot of controls to boot. They also do DVD transcoding, so if you have DVDs lying around and a DVD drive, I don't know who does, but you can do that. Also, Make MKV is an app that, with the appropriate licensing tomfoolery, you can also rip Blu-rays into your digital media collection, and then you can transcode them in Handbrake. So Make MKV along with Handbrake, and you have pretty much all media transcoding done. Let's talk about audio. Audacity is one of the longest standing open source applications out there. I don't know how long Audacity's been around. My only knock against Audacity is the fact that it looks like it's been around for 100 years, but I cannot knock the functionality of this piece of software. I keep coming back to it for high quality recording situations, and many podcasts around the world have cut their chops on Audacity. If you're into a digital audio workstation or creating music a la FL Studio or something like that, you need to check out LMMS, or Linux Musical. I can't even remember what it stands for. LMMS. They kind of dropped the Linux from explicitly being there so that they could acknowledge the fact that it runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux, not just Linux. Great support for VST plugins, as well as LADSPA plugins, LADSPA. But if you're looking for a piano roll, instrument, sample, loop-based music making app, then LMMS is the place to go. If you're looking for something a little more advanced that has the audio recording prowess of Audacity combined with some of the music creation features of LMMS, and you need to do mixing and mastering as well, then Ardour is a fantastic digital audio workstation that can help get you over the line there. Some of these tools are used by professionals. These are not apps that are made for high schoolers. Let's talk about design. There's a few different apps I want to get through here. FreeCAD, fantastic AutoCAD kind of equivalent, or CAD software that can help make three-dimensional designs or two-dimensional sketches that are very geometric and mathematically based. Now, I can't speak to just how advanced or how many features FreeCAD has compared to its commercial competitors, but it's a start. Chances are, if your livelihood depends on doing CAD work, this might not work for you. But if you're more of an amateur, or if you do some light contracting on the side, perhaps FreeCAD could be worth investing in, at least with a bit of time, if it's going to save you a few $1,000s a year. Moving on, let's talk about photo and image manipulation along with graphic design. The GNU image manipulation program, better known as GIMP, has been around for a long, long time. There are different versions of it available. I was going to recommend a slightly tweaked version called Glimpse, but what I am going to do is recommend that if you are interested in using the GNU image manipulation program, or GIMP, as a Photoshop alternative, which it very well can stand in for, although there are some features that are missing, I would definitely recommend that you go download and install GIMP 2.10, whatever it is, on whatever platform you're on, Mac, Windows, or Linux. Then jump onto GitHub and find PhotoGIMP. PhotoGIMP is an amazing plugin or extension to GIMP that effectively transforms it to look and feel and function very similarly to how Photoshop does by default. And this is a fantastic work of I believe he's either Spanish-speaking or Portuguese-speaking YouTuber in the Linux world called DioLinux. And anyway, it's a fantastic plugin and extension to help bridge the gap between what you might be used to in Photoshop to using something like GIMP. Moving on, Krita. I have seen Krita used in so many circles outside of the usual Linux open source space that I'm blown away. So many aspiring digital artists swear by Krita because of its feature set and because of its amazing ability to both manipulate images and also create them digital artwork style. So it has fantastic support and pressure sensitivity for a lot of the popular digital styluses out there. So definitely go and check out Krita. If vector graphics and web design is more your speed, then you need to check out Inkscape. Inkscape has been around for a long, long time, and unfortunately it is one of those apps that does look like it's been around for a long, long time, but vector graphics, it has you covered. Almost any feature under the sun that you can think of is there. Now, if you're looking for something more targeted towards user experience UI design, then have a look at Pencil. Pencil Project, I haven't seen any updates for this app come out in just a little while, but what this app is designed to do is for graphical user interface prototyping. So it's very similar to, what's it called? SketchUp? That might not even be right. But it's essentially a tool that you can use to create a mock-up for web designs or app designs, that kind of thing. And it can run, again, on Mac, Linux, or Windows. Go and check out what templates and stuff they have available, see what kind of stuff it does. I will also give an honorable mention to Gravit Designer. A lot of UI, UX, and web designers love Gravit Designer. While it is free, you can definitely go and use this, run it, and install it on Mac, Windows, and Linux. It is not open source per se, so I can't give it the full marks, but if you are looking to make the switch to Linux and all that's stopping you is UI, UX design software, then Gravit Designer should fill that void for you. Also, keep a very close eye on this project known as Akira. Akira is the Linux design tool. I don't know if there's plans to bring this over to Mac or Linux, but this tool has a lot of potential. It's under active development. It's currently in alpha, and we will see where this one goes. But it aspires to be the UI UX design tool that a lot of open source enthusiasts have been waiting for. Now that brings us to Code Editor. It's honestly really hard to recommend anything else other than Visual Studio Code. Now, I personally do not code. However, I have it on fairly good authority that a lot of people use VS Code already. Chances are, if you're a developer in any sense of the word, you've probably already heard of, and if not, are already using VS Code. But great support under Linux and most other platforms as well. That brings us on to video editing. I should have put these with the video transcoding, but it is what it is. Kdenlive. Kdenlive has been my video editor of choice, free and open source software available on Windows, Mac, and Linux for better part of 10 years now. It has consistently had features and more stability baked into it, and how accessible this app is blows my mind. So can't recommend Kdenlive enough. And if you're looking for some more advanced features, as well as 3D modeling, compositing, and video editing in the same app, you really can't look any further than Blender. Blender is, even if you were paying thousands of dollars for this software, it still sits among the best with flagship 3D modeling and just video image manipulation in general. Whether it's compositing, whether it's video editing, animation, this software does it all. So if you were going to invest any time in learning any of the apps on this list for creativity, Blender is the one that I would recommend. Moving on, I want to bolt another one to that recommendation and talk about Natron. And Natron is, or Natron, I don't really know how you say it, is compositing software. So if you have 3D assets that you've created in Blender and you want to mesh that in or composite it in with live action footage, green screen, blue screen, that kind of thing, this is like advanced level stuff we're talking, then you need to check out Natron. It's very similar to Adobe After Effects or something like that. Now, I will also give a shout out to Fusion by Blackmagic Design. They also run on Mac, Windows, and Linux, along with DaVinci Resolve, the video editor, but those apps are not open source, but they are free to use in some way or other. But definitely a huge shout out to Blender and Natron for the immense amount of compositing power that they bring to the open source world. Let's talk about notes and productivity in general. Joplin. If you have not tried out Joplin by this point, you need to go and get that done. Because Joplin is a fantastic OneNote, Evernote alternative, and it has synchronization capabilities that are enabled by whatever cloud storage service you have. So whether it's Dropbox, Google Drive, your own Nextcloud instance, whatever it might be, you need to go and check out Joplin. And cross-platform, available on mobile as well. And it has extensions for Firefox and Chrome if you're looking into getting some web clippings done. I can't say enough good things about Joplin. If you do need something that's a little more simple and you don't need the immense cataloging capabilities that something like Joplin has, then go and check out SimpleNote. I've been recommending this app for years. If you just need something to store text and you need it to be quick and simple and smart, then SimpleNote is the way to get that done. It's all tag-based navigation. Again, can't recommend it enough. I use this every single day. Standard Notes is another huge recommendation for note-taking. The only reason that it doesn't get the #1 spot is because if you want typical web formatting with your text and images, etc., then you do need to pay a small amount to get the extensions added on. Standard Notes values privacy and encryption above everything else, so they don't rely on any source of income other than what they get from the selling the extensions pack. So it's a very sustainable, viable business model. Again, if you value privacy in your notes, Standard Notes would be the one I would be putting my money on. Let's talk about photo management and photo, I guess, development. Digicam. If you have an immense photo collection and you want to be able to do things like automatically tag by face detection, or be able to tag GPS locations, or just catalog a bunch of photos and edit them in batch edits, all of that fun stuff. I'm not talking about like, Snapseed or Instagram edits. I'm talking about like proper photo management, photo library management. You need to check out Digicam. Again, available on all platforms. This thing gives Lightroom a huge run for its money. If not in raw photo development, it does in photo library management. And when paired with something like Darktable or even Raw Therapy, you have a potent photo development workflow on your hands. Darktable is also arguably a complete photo management solution with photo library management, with raw development, about all of the data and tweaking and information you could possibly have when developing raw photos. Its user interface is a little bit Spartan, is pretty severe, but the features that it gives you are arguably second to none. Let's talk about music library management. This is one that's kind of gone the way of the Dodo over the last few years, as most of us have transitioned over to things like Spotify and Apple Music and the rest of it. But if you do have a huge audio collection of really high quality files and you want to be able to get things like automatic album art download, you want to be able to sync these with an old school iPod, or you just want to be able to have access to all of your playlists, libraries, albums, wherever you have your files, then you need to check out Strawberry Music Player. Strawberry Music Player is a more recent fork of Clementine, and it has been around for a long time. It has a lot of excellent features buried below its very simple playlist-driven interface. All right, let's talk about Office suites. First recommendation is LibreOffice. LibreOffice is a long-standing fork now of OpenOffice, and it remains the flagship of one of the flagship apps of the open source community. Whether it is presentations, spreadsheets, documents, and even very sort of elementary graphic design, LibreOffice has you covered. Also worth noting that the LibreOffice app Drawer, that not many people know about this, but the LibreOffice app Drawer is actually a pretty capable PDF editor. So if you're if you need to change a few lines in a PDF or move some things around, then LibreOffice Drawer can be in a pinch replacement for something like Adobe Acrobat. The more you know. Another recommendation would be OnlyOffice. The only reason that this one doesn't get the full marks is just because I find it to be just a tad slower and sometimes a little bit clunky. However, this application, in my opinion, has better design and is more in step with modern expectations for Office software. Their compatibility goes toe-to-toe with Microsoft Office, especially around complex formatting. So once again, LibreOffice and OnlyOffice are fantastic Office suites for all your productivity needs. Scribus, desktop publishing, very similar to Adobe InDesign. And once again, if you are responsible for delivering the newsletter in your community or at your university or whatever, you need to check out Scribus immediately. While this application has been around for a long, long time, it supports all of the printing standards that are necessary for mass publication of printed documents and magazines and newspapers, etc. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of the open source app list. Let me know if I missed out one of the golden nuggets in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this long. Subscribe if you're interested in what happens next in the Switching to Linux series, and I shall see you all in the very next video.